Hello, welcome to this 11-part in-depth review of The Secret of Shambhala in Search of the 11th Insight by James Redfield. This is the third book in the series of the Celestine Prophecy, the first one being the Celestine Prophecy, followed by the 10th Insight, and this is The Secret of Shambhala. Now, in between, there was the Celestine Vision, but that one was more nonfiction and not in the same adventure story. But this is that. I read this back when it initially came out in the year 1999, 21 years ago. So I'm reading it again because I remember when I read it at the time, I felt like it didn't have the same punch and massive amounts of information and insight that the original book and the 10th Insight have. Hoping now that I'm 21 years wiser that I will find more meaning and more depth to this book. So if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe. We're going to go through this entire book over the course of 11 videos, and I will try to make them all short, preferably under 10 minutes each. I'd like to get you through this book in under 2 hours. So let's begin. Well, this slide appears as if I already went through it on that introduction, and I'm not going to repeat it, but we will take a look at the Kunlun Mountains in the top right-hand corner there. That is one of the settings of the book plot, the plot of chapter 1. The main character is living in a secluded area when he gets a call to action from Bill, that's his botanist, agronomist, gardener that helps him with his plants. And Bill says that his daughter has information for him. And his daughter is 12 or 14 years old, but she's really wise. So he goes to see her, and she lets him know that there are people living out the insights of the Celestine Prophecy in the Kunlun Mountains of Central Asia, and that he needs to travel there. Now, this is near where the mystical Shambhala is located. Now, that night, Will, and yeah, that is the Will from the Celestine Prophecy and the 10th Insight, Will visits him at nighttime with the same exact message as the girl. And so the main character decides to go, and he meets up with Will's contact, Yin Doloe. Okay, these are the characters of Chapter 1. John Woodson, that's the main character. I didn't even know John Woodson was the main character's name until I read this book, and I'm not sure where it was in the book, but maybe it was in the 10th Insight. But anyway, the main character's name is John Woodson. It's not mentioned at all in the original book. We have Will. I didn't know his full name was Wilson James, but Will is John, the main character's guide, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi or Yoda. Then you have Bill, that's the agronomy expert. Natalie, that's Bill's gifted daughter that sends him on the mission. Charlene Billings from the Celestine Prophecy and the 10th Insight is mentioned, but she doesn't have any talking lines and she doesn't appear, but she is mentioned. And then we have the dark-haired man, and he is Asian in appearance, fluent in English without accent, and crystal blue eyes. Yin Doloe, as I mentioned, Yin is Will's contact in Asia, and he's originally disguised as the pool attendant. Lama Rigden, he's the head of the sect, he's the head Lama. And then we have minor characters like the drink attendant and restaurant guests in the restaurant, and then the taxi driver. Okay, these are the locations mentioned in the chapter. And like I said, when you look into these locations, it should then take you on a rabbit hole journey of discovery. So you have Kathmandu, the Kunlun Mountains, Hotel Himalaya, Lhasa, Potala Palace, and the Potala Palace I did not know. It used to be the Dalai Lama's winter home, and it's depicted there in the bottom right-hand corner. And this building is magnificent. It's got 1,000 rooms in it. It's humongous. It's this, I forgot how many football fields. I think they said it was 300 or 400 meters long. That's huge. And it was built in the 1600s. How they did it, I don't know. Nepal, Shambhala, Shangri-La, the Himalayas, Tibet, and Lake Manasarovar. So those are the locations of Chapter 1. There's going to be more locations as we go along, but this video is just about Chapter 1. Shambhala and Shangri-La. It's first mentioned on page 19. It's a place of great significance to the Tibetan Buddhists. Ancient writings described it as a holy city of diamonds and gold, filled with adepts and lamas. It's hidden somewhere from the vast, uninhabitable regions of northern Tibet or China. In modern times, Shambhala is referred to more as a state of mind than a real place. The people of Shambhala are live human beings, born into the holy place, but they are of a higher evolutionary state. They help hold energy and vision for the entire world. They live on Earth within an extraordinary community and live at a higher level of development. They model what the rest of the world will ultimately achieve. They're not the spiritual guides of the 10th Insight. They aren't like family members or other souls of the afterlife that help us from that dimension. They just model what the rest of the world will ultimately achieve. Repeated plot devices that I'm not covering. These are things that happen in the 9th Insight and the 10th Insight, and they also are in Chapter 1. So synchronistic clues and repeated cues from the previous 2 books. The main character's reluctance of walking into the uncomfortability of the unknown and his out of the routine, and his refusal of losing control of scenarios and his refusal to allow the universe to guide him. General observations of nature and bodily clues, eye contact, moods, feeling watched, his demand to require explanations for everything, wanting to quit and go back to safety, demanding answers instead of just allowing the mystery to unfold. So even after 2 books, the main character still suffers from these control dramas. Prayer and medicine, affirmations versus requests. Now I believe this is the purpose of this chapter, was for this conversation between the dark-haired man and the main character to have a discussion. And the dark-haired man was explaining different science experiments that the scientific with prayer community set up with these experiments to test whether asking or affirming in prayer was more effective. So the first test was asking God to intervene. And they discovered that it was ineffective because it assumes that God can intervene, but only if he decides to hear the request. And it assumes that we have no role except to ask. Now keep in mind, this came out in 1999, so this is before The Secret and the Law of Attraction mega revolution. So then the next experiment was with affirmations. And this assumes that God is ready and willing, but has set up the laws of human existence so that whether the request is fulfilled depends in some part of the certainty of our belief that it will be done. So our prayer must be an affirmation that voices this faith. And so in the study, they discovered that affirmation prayer proved to be the most effective. All great prayers in the Bible are affirmations, not requests. So think of the Lord's Prayer. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And then the one, give us the day our daily bread and forgive us of our trespasses. So don't ask, affirm. It doesn't say, please, can we be forgiven? Or please, can we have some food? It merely affirms that these things are ready to happen already, and by faithfully assuming they will, we make it so. The profound impact of this revelation. If our expectation is what makes prayer work, then each of us is beaming a force of prayer energy out into the world all the time, whether we realize it or not. If prayer is an affirmation based on our expectations, our faith, then all our expectations have a prayer effect. We are unknowingly praying all the time for some kind of future for ourselves and others. We have a mental and spiritual influence on what happens to us in life and of creating true community. It's time we figured out how this works. And then there's a picture of Rigdon Tagpa, which was mentioned in the chapter. The Celestine Vision. It's the balance between the two. Balance and the force. Sustainable growth plus human technology. Optimism of the future. We are the ones to bring the change in the new millennium. Staying alert. Perceiving the mysterious flow. Something deeper is operating behind the scenes of the human drama. The problem is the sporadic nature of the perception because it comes and goes. How can we sustain it? And how can we control it? So some of the Celestine techniques are to uplift others and always remember to send energy, especially if someone else is not feeling quite right. Don't let them control your behavior. You should try to then uplift their behavior by sending energy. And so how you set your prayer field is your field of intention. So to find Shambhala, you have to learn how to consciously expand your energy field, your fields of intention. Here are time period fear observations of 1999. So the first had mentioned the rise of remote workers that work on their own schedules as consultants. Doesn't everybody just want to be a consultant? Lack of community, isolation, family, and people plugging into video. Now think about that. This was mentioned in 1999. And just think about the world we're in now, 21 years later, of everybody with their face on their phone. It was even happening 21 years ago. I don't know what James Redfield saw then, but I'd like to hear what he's got to say now. Questions if modern Western lifestyle is sustainable. So that's the whole, the West is wasting too much, consuming too much energy. They're asking also if global warming is real, and if terrorism and war are on the rise, or if it's just the fake news, if forests were actually dying, if technology will make kids go crazy or lose touch with reality. And again, 1999 compared to today. The rise of endless distraction. I got bored in 1999. I haven't been bored for at least 15 years. I forgot what being bored feels like. Email plus internet history plus hacking and surveillance. Even in 99, this was going on. That was funny too, because email was the primary method of communication versus like now it's social media and texting. But your internet history was tracked even back then. So then it also points out the opposite perspective that says, the doomsayers are a dime a dozen, and doomsayers have always been around. And technology can be used to solve the problems. Because remember, the ninth insight is all about utilizing the technology to create total automation of society to allow us to experience our adventure of life and seek out the synchronistic events. So the tech can solve all the problems, and we haven't even tapped into the human potential yet. That was a big concept of the Celestine vision, was the human potential movement, kind of going in the idea that, we're only using 10% of our brains, and what would happen if we tapped into the other 90%? The film Lucy was kind of about that, as well as Limitless. So for the doomsayers that are out there, it's like, hey, we're only tapping into 10% of our potential, and we're not even utilizing the technology that's there. A much better world is out there if we intend it. Don't let the fear take over. Let your own intention about creating a positive future be your intention and your affirmation upon the world. So this chapter introduced us basically to the law of attraction and the secret without calling it as such, and saying that we need to affirm instead of ask in our intention creating upon the world. So good first chapter. Introduced us to the settings, the characters, and the style. So this first chapter was pretty good. It was much better than I remember it, and I'm hoping the rest of the chapters are just as good, if not better, as this one. If you'd like to get a copy of The Secret of Shambhala, In Search of the 11th Insight, there will be a link in the description below. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe with the bell notification so that when future episodes come out, you'll be notified and you'll be able to see it. I'm Jonathan Lippy. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.